Factors that affect Santiago's climate by Luis Bailey and Daniela Neurer.
Santiago is the largest city in Chile. It is located in the middle of the Central Valley, which is surrounded by the Andes mountain range and the Chilean coastal range. A few hours going west of the city, there is a Pacific Ocean, and going east, it meets with different types of landforms like the Andes Mountains. To the south, you'll find the city of Puente Alto, and to the north, there is the city of Maipú. This city covers an area of 642 kilometers.
Latitude is one of the main factors that affect climate. It affects the temperature of the city for sure, since it's located 33.27 degrees south from the equator. This affects the direct sunlight the city gets, which is very minimal. Being so far from the equator, the city suffers from cold temperatures. This is why the city has snow on its mountains all year round. Due to its position, it gets lots of rain, 261.6 milliliters of rain annually. This graph shows latitude and temperature. It shows how latitude affects the temperature of a city. Santiago's range is in the middle of the pink circle. Since it's 33.27 degrees south from the equator, it has a temperature around 20 degrees Celsius, which is shown in the graph. Because it's south from the equator, so it does not receive a lot of direct sunlight.
One of the factors that affect temperature is altitude. The higher the altitude, the colder the temperature gets. Santiago, Chile reaches high elevations in the Andes Mountains, and since these mountains have high altitude, they have snow throughout the whole year. Santiago City has an elevation of 1,706 feet, or 520 meters. For about every 304 meters, the temperature drops about 2 degrees Celsius. Santiago City does not have an overall high elevation, but still experiences cold temperatures during winter, which is during May, June, July, and August in Santiago, Chile. Wind speed also affects temperature. It is faster in the mountains and slower in lower areas because the mountains block most of the wind. There is little to no wind in Santiago because the Andes mountain range blocks most of the wind. Sunlight is another factor that affects temperature. In lower areas beneath the mountains, there is not a lot of sunlight because mountains block most of it. You would expect there to be a lot of sunlight in the mountains, but big mountains are shaded by clouds and the smaller ones are shaded by the bigger mountains. At the base, there is nothing blocking the sunlight, so it receives sunlight all day long. Then this mountain range brings shade to Santiago City, so there is not a high amount of sunshine there. Altitude is the main factor that affects Santiago's climate, especially with the Andes mountain range right next to it.
This graph shows altitude and temperature. When you have a low elevation, you have high temperatures, and when you have high elevations, you have low temperatures. Chile is right in the middle, and that's why it has a normal temperature of 20 degrees Celsius. Santiago has a lot of mountains close to it. Having mountains affects the city precipitation. Winds carry moist air over the land. When the moist air reaches the mountains, it rises because the mountains are in the way. As the air rises, it cools, and since the cool air can carry less moisture than warm air, then there's usually rain. Like I mentioned before, Santiago has really high mountains like the Andes, and this explains why it has so much rain. The altitude causes colder temperatures due to the wind trying to go through, which then causes rain. Santiago's inland position was mentioned before. Santiago is located in the middle of the Central Valley, which is surrounded by the Andes and the Chilean coastal range. To the west, the city is just a few hours away from the Pacific Ocean, and to the east, the city meets with a different type of landforms such as the Andes and other mountain ranges. To the south, you'll find the city Puente Alto, and to the north is Maipú. Like mentioned before, wind is one, if not the most important factor that affects climate. Since it rises to go through the mountains, which are really high, they carry less moisture, which causes rain, which is what the whole city's climate is about. Rain, cold temperatures, and overall low sunshine and cloud cover. Rain and cold temperatures does not stop the city from being an amazing tourist stop with wonderful people and ecological systems. Thank you for watching. Here are our sources in MLA format.